Okay, so question number 16 of this paper is another essay. Okay, so it is discuss findings of research into cultural variations in attachment. Now, there are three things here that I'm going to point out to you. Some of them I pointed out to you in our last 8 marker, but I just want to go through it again to make sure that everybody is happy. So, number one, discuss is outline and evaluate. Okay, it just means that your evaluation points have to be a little bit more diverse and, get strengths and limitations, so you're arguing both sides of that point. Okay, it is only an 8 marker. Okay, so 8 marks means that you have 3 marks for outline and 5 marks for evaluation. Okay, 3 marks for outline means that you are looking at around 75 words, maybe 100 words at a push, and 5 marks for the evaluation means that you are going to get maybe 2 evaluation points. If you're feeling really good about the topic, then by all means push to a third evaluation point, but 2 good detailed evaluation points should be plenty for this essay. Okay, now the other thing to bear in mind is the wording of the question. Okay, so it says discuss findings of research, not discuss research. Okay, so when you're writing your outline has to focus very specifically on what was found and not what was done. You have a lot of options here, depending on what resource you're using and depending on what textbook you're reading and all of this. You've got the key study by Van Eysendorn and Cronenberg that you could talk about. There are a lot of findings in there that you could write about for this outline. You've also got some of these smaller studies that were done in specific countries, like the study by Jin et al. That was done in Korea, and you've got one by Simonelli as well that was done in Italy. Okay, so any of those are fine. You just have to make a decision for yourself what you can write about in order to get 3 marks or 100 words or so. Okay, you don't have to talk about multiple studies, although you can if you want. You could just talk about one. Okay, and that's what I'm going to do because I'm going to talk about the Van Eysendorn study. Okay, I'll show you the answer in a minute. Just as a heads up, I do only have 2 evaluation points, but they are also quite detailed, and so that is going to be plenty for me. So let's go ahead and have a look at this essay. So we'll start with the outline. Okay, so I have done, like I said, the Van Eysendorn and Cronenberg study. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of give the main findings. Okay, so we've got secure attachment was the most common across all countries. You can add some detail in by saying it ranged from 50 to 75%. You've then got avoidant and resistant as the next two. Okay, you can then start getting into the detail a little bit and saying that Japan and Israel, for example, as collectivist cultures, were an exception to this rule because they had much higher levels of resistant than avoidant. Okay, and then you can finish it off with one particular country, and you can say that Germany had much higher rates of avoidant attachment than other countries. Okay, because their rate was up at 35%. Okay, so you've effectively got 3 lots of results. You've got the broad result of secure was most common, followed by avoidant and then resistant. You've got your second lot of results, which is that the exception to that rule was Japan and Israel, who had much higher levels of resistant attachment. And then you've got your third finding, which is specifically about Germany, that had very high levels of avoidant. Okay, so that's my outline. That comes in at around 85, 90 words or thereabouts. Okay, let's have a look at the first evaluation point. Apologies for my handwriting. So we have a strength of the research is the fact that they did a meta-analysis. And the reason that is a strength is because they had a massive sample of around 2,000 babies and their caregivers. Now, the reason that such a big sample is good is because it reduces the impact of anomalous results. Okay, and the fact that it reduces the impact of anomalous results is good because it increases the overall validity of the findings. Okay, now before I move on, just a quick reminder, the question is all about the findings. Okay, so any evaluation point that you do has to be centered on the findings. Now that doesn't mean that you can't talk about the method that was used, but you have to bring it back to the findings. Okay, so here I'm saying the method that they used was great, but the knock-on effect of a great method is the fact that the findings overall had increased validity. Okay, therefore I am evaluating the findings. All right, and I'm going to do a very similar thing with my second evaluation point, which is a limitation. Okay, so a limitation of cross-cultural research is the fact that confounding variables can potentially impact the results. Okay, so again, I'm talking about the findings. Even though I'm criticizing the method, the poor method has an impact on the findings. So the problem that we have is that confounding variables can be introduced quite a lot. Okay, and the reason that that is the case is because when you conduct studies in different countries, they're often not matched, which means that variables like poverty or social class or even the age of participants can impact your results. On top of that, because the studies weren't matched, you've also got things like different room size or different types of toys that are being used. Some of them are perhaps a little bit more interesting than others, and both of those things are also going to have an impact on your findings. Okay, so babies might appear, for example, to explore more if the room is smaller, even though they're not necessarily exploring more, but it just looks like it because they haven't got as far to go. Okay, and if they look like they're exploring more, then they might appear to be securely attached because exploration behavior is a hallmark of a securely attached infant. Okay, so they might look securely attached even though they're actually not. Okay, so therefore, my concluding sentence, comparing attachment behavior in non-matched studies conducted in different countries might tell us very little, if anything at all, about cross-cultural patterns in attachments. Okay, so if I go back to the beginning, there is my outline, 85, 90 words, give or take. I have one strength that is focused on the findings, and then I have a second strength which has slightly more detail and is slightly longer as well, that also focuses on the findings. Okay, remember, 2 evaluation points is plenty for an 8 marker, especially if you are going to give the extra detail like some figures or maybe some examples or something like that. Okay, and that is that question. I hope that makes sense. I will see you in the next question, which is the start of the final topic. Thank you very much for watching.